Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Pizza Motorcast. This yours Dave. Gonna call Neal Hinman, driver of the Bad Habit, Nitro Fuel Altered, in a second. So hold on. Alrighty.
Oh, it's Neal.
Hey Neal, you're live on the Pizza Motorcast. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for calling, man.
Oh, no problem, man. So, you ready for Christmas?
Well, I don't think anybody's ever really ready for Christmas, but it's going to show up anyway, so yeah, I'm as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, got like 12 more days.
Yep, and it just seems to get shorter and shorter as you get older and older. That's for sure.
So now, the Bad Habit Fuel Altered, how did it run for you this year?
It did real well. It did real well. This is only our first really full season. We didn't debut the car until at the Fuel Alter Nationals last year. So we only got to run it just a select few races last year. This year was our first full year. And, we still struggled with some clutch issues. And it didn't take us until the end of the season to finally get waded through all the parts and broken pieces to figure out what we did wrong. But the car did pretty much what I asked of it. Learned a lot with this nitro thing, and was real happy with the way it still performed, irregardless of what parts we ran over and what stuff went on with it. And I know people sure like watching it run. That's for sure.
So now, in the short time you've been running this Fuel Altered, how many events did you run this year?
I think we went and totaled it up. I think I ended up doing about 9 events this year, including, Fuel Alter Nationals. We had quite a few booked-in shows, that kind of a thing. And I know at the end of the season, I got all my guys together, and I'm trying to get a feel of how many events these guys want to go to, because crew guys, it's a big deal. They got to take off vacation and time away from everything. And I got a unanimous, we didn't race enough. So we're going to try and go find maybe a dozen for this coming season.
Yeah, I know you're going to do a funny car body and run some funny car chaos events.
Yeah, they announced that they were going to have an event there at Eddyville. And Eddyville is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of my adopted hometown track, I guess. I have a little 8-mile track just 20 minutes from me there at North Iowa Dragway that we raced. We picked the car over there once a year, but Eddyville's really kind of been my place. So Gerald has always been real good with us, and once he announced he was going to have a race, and we had picked up a body last year, and I pretty much had him out and just ran out of time before we had to go back into match race mode. So decided it was time to get that project finished up and go support Gerald down there at Eddyville, and then I know the guys down there at Mocan have had the last 2 years, and we go down to Mocan and run a couple of times for them down there, and so we may, if I got enough parts in the trailer, enough money for diesel, we may head down there too for next year.
Awesome, yeah, that's a great event that Chris Graves puts on.
It's getting bigger every year, and it catches a lot of steam on social networks. The car count's pretty cool. The quality of the cars is really good. And it gives a place for a lot of stuff that doesn't have a place to race.
Exactly.
And, not having to drive to the coast, back and forth. He keeps it pretty close together, I guess, all things considered, without having to drive, 18 hours one way and take a week off of work. That's the big thing.
Yep. So now you had a crazy run with the Nitro Madness. You guys got pretty close on that one run, huh?
Yeah, I think that was down there at the Nationals. We were down there, and that might have been my first qualifier. It should have been my first qualifier because it was at night. And, Scott actually was the one that approached me and got me started in this nitro fuel alter deal. And I had raced radar in the past with my dragster, and so we've been back and forth, and so we built this car and put it together, and we was down there, and there again we put a different style clutch in the car for that event. It was like our first hit on it, and we didn't get aggressive enough, and the car kind of laid over on the tire. And I just kind of figured if I hang on the wheel hard enough, it would hold, and it sure didn't look that close from where I was sitting, but the picture sure showed it got kind of close, and everybody kind of asked me at the end, did you ever see him? And I said, well, I know where he was at, but I don't think it was that close. But pictures kind of showed different at the end.
Yeah. So
that's what makes these things so much fun to drive. I mean, it's just unbelievably fun to drive these things, doing that kind of stuff.
So on the dragster, was that when Raider was driving Orange Crate?
No. Actually, what it was is about a few years ago. Well, the deal was we were running this Midwest Pro Outlaw event, which they still have at Eddyville. It's a 4.0 index. And at that time, I was running it with a screw-blown Hemi in a Pro Mod for Mike Bell out of Missouri. And we ran that first couple races with the car, and then I ended up wadding that car up there at Eddyville real bad. Tore it up something fierce, tore out a whole bunch of guardrail, got myself a free ticket to the hospital for a little bit. And I had a 290-inch top alcohol car that I had built, just a chassis sitting in the shed. So we took the drivetrain out of that and put it in, out of the Rec Pro line, put it in the dragster, and we finished up the season with Pro Outlaw Group in that car. And at that time, Roger was driving the car in Pro Outlaw also. So him and I had raced back and forth together between the dragster and the fuel welter deal in the past before I switched to this. So.
Yeah, that's cool. So now let me rewind the clock with you now and ask you how did you get into drag racing?
It's kind of one of them deals. I grew up here in northern Iowa, and I wasn't really interested into sports. There's not much else to do when you live on a farm. So anything that's got an engine in it, it was tear it apart and figure out how to make it go. And so I just did the normal stuff every other kid did. Me and a couple of buddies, we put together a car, run it over to Humboldt a little bit, back and forth, and kind of did that just on and off as we could afford it. And then I ended up going to work for Doug DeMoss down there at Quick Performance, and he really got me into. We were doing blown alcohol, flat bottom drag boats, and pulling trucks, and we had a big customer base. So I did a lot of that kind of stuff and got exposed to a lot of different forms of motorsports, and that's really what kind of set the hook, especially with the blower stuff. And just kind of kept working with people and jumping from project to project and stayed at it for all these years.
So what year did you actually start drag racing?
Well, to be real honest, 2005, I would say, was when I really got serious. I actually got asked to go do the clutch on a top alcohol car for Richard Putz out of eastern Iowa, over there by Pearlville. And so I did a couple of races with him, and then that team kind of wanted to go one way, and I went a different direction. I didn't do much for a little while, and then what I got at that time, this Mike Bell out of Missouri, Fulton, had a top alcohol funny car, and he was tied in with Vern Motes here in Iowa, and Bell was needing some crew. So myself and actually the guy that's with me in this car that is kind of my main guy, he came with and he did clutch and I kind of did bottom end and we ran all over the place with Bell with that car for a couple 3 years before moving into selling that, moving into a pro mod and then just kind of kept moving around, bouncing from team to team.
So how many years did you drive pro mods for?
I basically just drove for a couple of years. Back in 2010, we went down to Houston. I got licensed down there in like February. They had a February warm-up deal, and got licensed in the car back in 2010, and ran a couple of just local races. I think we run down in Tulsa, Oklahoma a few times, and At that time, the Chris Duncan series was going, and I ran a few races at Cedar Falls. I ran World Series of Drag Racing with the car, and a bunch of little 8th mile stuff, and did that. And we hit, at 2015, Bell told me he wanted out of the car altogether. He just didn't want to drive it anymore, and he really didn't want to foot the bill either. And so we struck up a deal where basically I would foot the bill for the car, and we'd go race, and I'd run the show, and we ran it a couple of races, and then, like I say, we was down there at Eddyville and had the throttle hang and went through the finish line, took out a whole bunch of guardrail, and it went airborne and wadded the thing up into next to nothing. And that was the end of that car.
Wow.
So
did you have any success driving a Pro Mod?
Yeah, we did. We won a couple. They had some shootouts that they used to run down at Tulsa, and I won a couple of their shootouts down there. And when Bell was driving, we did real well. Our first weekend out with the car, we didn't know nothing about Pro Mod racing. We went down to, we actually bought the car, come from a guy that rented a little spot from Todd Tuttero's place down there. We drove down to Tuttero's and bought the car as a roller, drug it home, pulled the drivetrain out of the funny car, shoved it in this car, went and rented Eddyville for an afternoon, just so we figured out how to make the car start, run, move, go back, forward, go down the racetrack. And immediately, the next weekend, we went to Kansas City when they were still open. And they always had a monthly shootout down there at Kansas City at the time. And right off the trailer, first qualifier, we reset the track record. I think it was like a 90. I think we went a 96 or a 98. This would have been back in 2009. And we ended up going semifinals for it. Kicked the head gasket out of it. I got a little greedy on the tune-up. But the car always did real well, and we used to do a lot of racing down in Texas and that kind of thing. And we had a lot of fun. Didn't win any big races, but, boy, we sure had a lot of fun. And the car was competitive and a lot of fun to watch.
So now after the couple years of Pro Mod, what'd you do after that?
Well, we wadded that car up, and so we took everything out of that, and I put it in that dragster. Well, the deal was we wadded it up on a Saturday night, and it just so happened one of my crew guys couldn't go, so he was back here at the house, and next morning I'm laying in the back of the semi. Of course, you find all the stuff that gets really, really sore that you didn't know could get sore in a bad wreck.
Right.
So I really couldn't get out of bed. So I got on the phone. I called my buddy at the house and told him, I said, hey, you need to go get that dragster out of the machine shed and start Scotch-Brite and tubing. We're coming home and with what's left of the car. And so we did that and brought it back. And we had the next race was in 3 weeks after I wrecked it. So within 3 weeks, we put the drivetrain in that dragster, rewired it, plumbed it, fired it. We went back down. I qualified number 1, won that race, and then I won the next race after that. And then we went and did top dragster at the divisional race there in Earlville, and qualified top of the field on that deal until we ran under and got kicked out for going too quick. So that car kind of ran around for about 2 years doing, run basically pro outlaw and some outlaw stuff, but we just couldn't find a home for it. I didn't have the budget to run top alcohol dragster. But the other stuff, it always, we're running a 370 car and a 4.0 index. So it made it really rough to be competitive in that type of a deal.
So what happened after the dragster?
So basically what happened was we sitting there at the end of that last year, we had the dragster, and I had beat myself up pretty good because we go out there and either haul ass or go out there and shake tires trying to get this car to work on this 4.0 deal. And well, then I got a call from Scott Galter that runs the Nitro Madness car. And he comes up on a Sunday afternoon and he says, have you ever thought about running a nitro car? And I said, well, no, because I said, I don't know a damn thing about running nitromethane. He says, I've always been a blown alcohol guy. So he says, well, he kind of laid out a plan. What he was looking for was wanting someone he could put together another car so that he had a reliable partner to go match race with, because Scott does a lot of match racing.
Right.
And so he kind of shot me an offer, was like, he knows I build all my own stuff, and Scott has his own jig. They're old, because the chassis shop that built all of Jimmy Rector's cars, that's what this car is and what Scott's car is. So he bought the jig right from the shop that used to build all of Jimmy's cars. And so Scott lent me his jig, and over the wintertime I actually built 2 complete chassis and screwed everything together. And Scott gave me his combination, engine combination, gear ratios, and says, here's kind of how you do this. And Radar was a huge help in answering all my dumbass questions as to, why are we doing this and what's going on with that. And, kind of got me steered and got me going straight. And that was, like I say, a couple of years ago. And like I say, over the wintertime, built the car, had it done, and we've just kind of been doing this thing ever since, and don't regret 1 minute of it. It's nuts.
So how was your first time experience driving a nitro car?
It's kind of one of them typical deals. I'd never driven one, don't know a damn thing about nitro, and our first lap is my first qualifying lap at World Fuel Ultra Nationals down there at Eddyville, and figured the best way to know about it, strap it in, and they stuck me to the back of the pack, so I had a single. And I said, boy, just light her up. We'll figure it out as we go. And, man, the first time you drop the hammer on one of these stupid things, you're hooked. It's brutal. It's loud and nasty. The thing sticks you back. It rattles the tires. And I was just like, okay, what do I got to sell next to go buy another drum of nitro? Because it didn't matter at that point.
Yeah. You get to see those header flames coming out of the side by you.
Oh yeah, we were down to we was at Mocan doing a show down there that very first year, and a couple of guys from Galter's crew kept saying, wait till you run at night, you'll have a totally different perspective. And so we went down there and we made actually I was racing Radar, and we were the last pair to run that night. It was 10, 11 o'clock at night. Most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You drop the hammer, and it's this wall of flame, and you're screaming down through there, and you look over, and he's next to you, and he's got the big flames. It's just way, way too cool.
Yeah, that's what the fans love to see.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the flames and the big noise. These things, with these short little, we run these little dragster headers on here, and they make a ton of noise, and even for a little pump car, these are only 21, 25-gallon pump cars, and they still make a ton of noise for as small a pump that they are.
Yeah, and the long smoky burnouts, the fans love that too.
Oh yeah, this is all about the show. That was the one thing I learned really, really fast with these cars is, and when we're working on getting bookings and everything, it's all about making sure that the promoter gets his money's worth to provide a good show for the fans. Big burnouts, making sure your crew looks good, making sure the car don't leak oil all over the place, and so that everybody gets a good show and it keeps the program moving. And that was my biggest concern when I built this was, I didn't want to get a reputation as being a leaker or the guy that screws around and never makes it more than 10 feet. And so I worked real hard on making damn sure we do our best anyway. And because I want to make sure the promoter, I get asked back for the next year.
Right. Now, with the short time running this car, what's been the fastest time you've done with this car?
With this car, we've been 389 in the 8th, and we've been 197 as our best mile an hour with the car in the 8th. We ran in the quarter mile, our best quarter mile with it over at, we ran Night of Fire at Cedar Falls. This car went at 6:02, and it went I can't remember the mile per hour. It went 230 over there or 226. I just can't remember. We ran this on the mountain this year because I'm a member of the Midwest Fuel Altered Association, and they booked a show with us out there early this spring. And hell, I'd never run. I'd run on the mountain with an alcohol car, but nothing with a fuel car. So I called Radar and I said, "Man, what do I do with this damn thing?" And he says, "There's only two things I do," and he says it's pretty straightforward. Just put this in it, and it'll be fine. And we went a 626 out there on the mountain, which I was real happy with. First time running quarter mile with a nitro car on the mountain, so I was good with it.
So now for next season, are you looking to get that car to go faster?
Absolutely. No, I really kind of want to see the car run some 70s, 80s consistently. Just now that we have some of our clutch woes at least figured out, I'm really hoping, because we've got a good, strong engine program that really doesn't hurt parts, and we haven't been leaning on it. And the car itself has been a very, very predictable car, I guess, as much as predictable as an Altered could be. But it doesn't throw me anything stupid out there. And we've actually been behind the tire quite a bit on the wheel speeds. And I know we can get more aggressive with some different ratios. And so my plan is we invested in a third short block, and we wounded one blower this year. And so we stepped up, and I've got my little trusty little field here that we restripped, but we're going to buy a lot nicer blower to run Funny Car Chaos, because it's going to take some more boost to be able to run with the Funny Car body guys. And so yeah, I'd like to 70s and 80s would be the next logistical step, and we'll see how that goes.
All right, so now Neal, after all these years of drag racing, now what still keeps you passionate about doing it?
To be real honest, there's two things that, especially this year, that has really kind of kept me in it. Once we did the bookend shows, a lot of it's the fans, watching all these different people come up and talking to people that come through, and it's amazing. We were up in Martin, Michigan, and doing a show up there, and so many people, they tell me this is the first time they've ever been to a drag race. And, to see someone that's never been to one of these things and all, to kind of hear all their perspective of how things go, it's really, really cool. And the other one is, it takes several crew guys to keep one of these things moving. I take at least 5 guys with me, which isn't a lot compared to some teams, but it works for us. And being able to load up my 5 guys in a semi-truck, take off cross-country, go race, and then when we're done, we usually cook up. I've got a Ole that works for me on the crew. He's my cook, and killer cook. And so we'll cook up a big meal and have a couple of cocktails, and then it's sitting around and shooting the bull with the other teams and my guys, and that's the part I really kind of look forward to. It's my getaway from my business. I don't have to worry about that stuff. I got this going on.
Right.
And there's a lot to that I really enjoy.
All right, so how'd the Bad Habit name come about?
Well, we was sitting around, my wife and I was sitting around watching TV, and I had a long list of names on a notebook, and just nothing really kind of fit. And basically, my wife says, "Well, why don't we call it Bad Habit, and then we'll use the nun as the mascot type deal." And immediately it just kind of clicked with me, because that's what I wanted, something different. And so we decided to call it Bad Habit. And then it was kind of weird, because I come across the name, and then I got a hold of Mike Garland. He's a track photographer over there at Cordova. And I wanted him to do a photo shoot. He did my posters that we sell. And told him what I wanted, and I got to have what we call the Naughty Nun. And we sell our T-shirts with a Naughty Nun version or just the car version. And so he set it up. We did a killer photo shoot. And so we saw all these posters and everything. Well, then we got all this done, and it wasn't until probably a month or so later I was just happened to Google it. And, I'm not a big history buff, so this thing come up. There's a new poster down on the East Coast called Bad Habit, and they were really successful out there. And it was just kind of cool to see that there is an original one out there. I'm not trying to copy it by no means, but so it was just kind of cool. I had no idea. It was just one of them deals we pulled it up on a Saturday night watching TV kind of thing.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's just something different. I just wanted something different to stand out in the crowd, and we kind of came up with some different designs on the T-shirt, something totally different than everybody else, and that's why we did the posters. We got the naughty nun sitting on the car with an airplane in the background because I have a airplane repair business, so I kind of combined my business with the car, with the name, and kind of put it. And Mike kind of put all that together for me, and it just worked out really, really well. Really happy with it.
So now, when you first got into drag racing, do you have any drag racers that were inspirational to you back then?
Well, I don't know. To be real honest, there was a few local guys. I guess I probably watched more than the big guys. I mean, because when I was a lot younger, we got to watch a little bit of drag racing on TV, and it wasn't quite how it is here, But I had my local guys that I watched, the Bacon brothers that ran over there at Humboldt at the time. I liked watching them, and there was a few other guys that I liked to watch. The early Pro Mod stuff down at Eddyville, when Brozovich and Carl Moyer and a lot of them guys. Scotty Cannon was like the man I guess I looked up to as, a guy that was big on attitude and big on putting on a show, but he could back the BS up at any point in time, come out there and whoop everybody's butt. I really got a kick out of Scotty Cannon. And so that's kind of really where I was at.
All right, so who are all the crew members that keep the Bad Habit purring?
Well, basically, the guy that's been with me the longest, he's been with me since we did the Top Alcohol Funny Car and the Pro Mod and all the other stuff that I drug through was Tom Fangman. He lives over there in eastern Iowa, over there by Earlville. He's a guy he's retired now, so he's got a little machine shop. He machines a ton of my one-off stuff that I need for the car. And then Ole Flayton, he's my cook. He does all the cooking for everybody. We bring in a big skillet and grills and all this stuff, and he makes all the food. And every now and then I make him go to work on the car, just out of being mischievous, because he's always scared of hurting something. He's just great big Norwegian. So we put him to work on that. Justin Yeasker, we call him Whiskey. He's kind of my right-hand guy here at the shop. He lives here in town. He's out here 2-3 times a week working on the car. And Chad Boozman, we call him Booze. He shows up. He comes with us when he can. Been with me for a lot of years out here working on equipment. And Caleb Crum, when he's not working on his stepdad's Pro Mod, and he can get away, I drag him off to some corner of the United States, and he's been with me since the Pro Mod, the Dragster, and now the Fuel Walker. So those are my main guys.
Now, does your wife ever help you out?
What's that?
Does the wife ever help you out?
No, not really. Never been a big fan. She'll show up to support. My kids basically sell T-shirts. My daughter sells T-shirts. My son helps out with T-shirts and posters. And the boy, he'd rather Scotch-Brite tubing and help clean oil pans. He works on that. He's 12, and my daughter's 14, and she takes care of all the T-shirt sales and posters and kind of corralling people. And then my wife, she's there to help out, kind of just fill in where she's at, but it's never been her big thing.
So your kids like drag racing?
Yeah, they didn't have any choice with me around here. I shoved them in a junior dragster the minute they were old enough. About 6 years old, and they've been at the races since they were little. I got pictures of my oldest daughter. She couldn't have been more than she might have been a year old, year and a half, standing on the frame rail of a funny car, handing wrenches to the guys. And so they've always been around race cars since they was a little kid. They don't know any different. So they have a lot of fun.
Now, do you have any sponsorship at all?
No. As of right now, I basically don't. I run this thing out of my own pocket. Mike Cavalieri over in Omaha late last year, he's been helping me out with some parts. He's pretty much my main guy that's helped me out with parts wise. But otherwise, I run this thing out of my own pocket, and we need to work on that a little bit more, because it'd sure be nice to have someone else help us out, even if it was just for diesel or food or buy a little bit of nitro. Nitro's expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But that's on me to make that happen. We've been so busy with the car, I've kind of been slacking on that. So that's my own fault.
All right, so when you're out on the track, Neal, do you have any pre-race rituals or superstitions at all when you're out there?
I really don't. To be real honest, I guess. But the only thing that I get a little bit twitchy about is I like having at least one of my regular guys belt me in. Something about the same guy belts me in, does it the same way every time. Makes me feel better on that part. But aside from that, I don't usually get too wound up about much anything. It's just light the fire and we'll figure it out as we go.
All right, now what are some of your favorite tracks to run on?
Tulsa, Oklahoma has to be my absolute most favorite place. We've run Pro Mod there, and we run the divisional with, I used to be a crew chief for Dean Dubbin up there. He owns DMP Awnings out of Little Falls, Minnesota. So we run that car down there at some divisionals. I really, really like Tulsa. Nice place, people. Thing is flat as a pool table. You can haul ass. Plenty of prep. Plenty of shutdown. Very, very nice. Denver's nice. You just got to get used to the altitude. Eddyville, obviously, got to put in for Eddyville. That's my go-to. Wherever we got to go test or do anything, I just called Gerald up on the phone and said, "Hey man, can you kind of slide me in the back of the show?" And he always makes sure he does his best to help us. So those are my big ones right there.
Now, you prefer quarter mile or eighth mile?
I'm an eighth mile guy. I'll do quarter mile if they write me a check. I have no problem, but I really, really like the eighth mile. Yep.
Now, where do you get your fire safety equipment from?
Basically, my actual suit's a Simpson, but my gloves and my boots are Stroud. And they'll always be Stroud because I like my Stroud boots and gloves. White parachutes from down there. DJ Safe, he takes care of my fire bottles, carbon fiber belly pan. ISP does my head shrouds inside the cage. And those are pretty much my big ones there. I got a Simpson helmet, and then I went this year. I had an older style head and neck restraint, and this year I went with a new style Hans design. So kind of got used to that. Kind of dig the shit out of that. So it's all good.
Now, what would you consider to be some of the milestones of your drag racing career so far?
Well, I would say, the first one for me, I guess, was when we ran the Pro Mod at World Series, because at the time Bell owned the whole operation. He was off driving for Vern Motes. He was out I think he was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, running funny car. He called me up and says, "Hey, just grab the semi, grab the rig. You're on your own. Take it, go run it. And so it was just me and my best friend Sean and Tom, and we went over there and we did real well, qualified well, and I was real. That was one of my favorites. And then I guess right after the wreck, when we won down there at Eddyville, was kind of a big deal for me to go from destroying a six-figure race car, being in having to go to the hospital, get checked out, get everything fixed, busted my tailbone, and then put a car together to go qualify number one and win it. That was probably my big one. Yep.
Now, can you think of one most embarrassing moment you had on the track with any of your drag racing cars? What was your most embarrassing moment?
Oh boy, there's a plenty of them because boy, we can sure figure out 300 ways to look stupid out there. I tell you what, probably the funniest one. That was a bit embarrassing after I saw the videotape. The first year we put the fuel car together, the guys over there at Humboldt or North Iowa Dragway, they asked if I come out and put on a couple laps. And so we went over there. My normal crew couldn't show up. So I called around town and I recruited a couple of guys that they don't know nothing about a race car, but they could take instruction pretty good. So we take all these guys over there and we go to fire the car. And I told the one guy, I said, the only job you got to do is you're going to stand in front of the car, back me up. When the car comes to a stop, as you walk past, pull the throttle stop off the throttle and walk away. Well, he didn't realize how much nitro gets flung in your eyes when you're backing one of these things up. So as I'm backing up, I can tell he can't see and he's rubbing his eyes. He's trying to keep up. And he got so frustrated with his eyes, he walked right on past the throttle stop. So here I sit. Luckily, the one guy that walked over to put me in the beams, he reached across, pulled it off, stuck me in there, and we went down. Well, when I looked at the video, I see him walk past. Well, then he gets past, then he realizes he forgot the throttle stop, and he runs forward. Well, then he watches the car come forward, he runs backwards. And I looked at him, I said, who's running around looking like Stevie Wonder trying to find, where the throttle stop is? And he's like, oh, man, I couldn't see because all the nitro, and my nose was running, I had snot on my sleeve. So I guess that can't be on the top side of my list.
All right. So now, Neal, what would you say would be your fondest memory of your drag racing career?
The fondest one has to go back in 05. The very first race I ever did on a screw-blown car when I was working for Richard Putz. Didn't know a damn thing about any of this stuff on a screw-blown Hemi and top alcohol car. So they're going to have me. I'm going to do the clutch. We go down to Reynolds, Georgia, to go run the last divisional of the season, and it was just me and a buddy of mine that was actually the crew chief at the time, LaDon, and Richard and his wife. That was it. That's the only crew we had. We went down there and with the first qualifier, the car left, and I'm standing behind there. Shit, I thought top fueler took off. This thing's smoking. And my guy looks at me and says, "Oh, the car's a mutt. Didn't go anywhere." So we make just a real small change in the clutch and go up there and qualify number one, reset the track record, and you could tell. I mean, that thing really jumped up on the tire. And we ended up winning the event, setting the track record, and qualifying number one. And he gave me a Wally. Each one of the crew guys got a Wally for that divisional. And it's the very first race. I thought, well, shoot, this drag racing thing's easy. I mean, look what we just did, And so that had to be my most memorable.
Now, do you have any other hobbies outside of drag racing?
No. You kidding? This thing sucks up every minute of the day, not to mention any free dollars that happen to float by. So, no, I don't have any other hobbies. I have an airplane business that keeps me very, very busy. And when I'm not there, I'm in the shop here working on my race car.
Now, throughout your drag racing career, have you had any accidents?
Have I had what?
Any wrecks?
Any wrecks? Well, we wrecked that Pro Mod pretty good. Like I say, that was the one that was bad. We ended up, going through basically it was, ironically, it was pretty wild. We were just on a test run, and I was actually running against Sean Belt in his fuel altered. And it was right through the finish line. We went through the fence at 200, and the car went airborne twice, landed way out at the end, and just destroyed everything. And so I hit that. And then earlier this year, we actually hit the wall with the altered up there at Eddyville. We were testing some stuff, and that was driver inflicted. We'd gone up there for 3-4 attempts, and I kept knocking the tire off, and we were going to go up there for one more time, and I pedaled it and shouldn't have, and yeah, we kind of climbed the wall, bent the front end, and bent the wing, destroyed the wing, and bent the A-frame, but we had all that fixed within 2-3 days. It was all good on that. So aside from those two, no, nothing major.
Well, knock on wood, Neal, you're not going to have any accidents.
Well, absolutely. I said, I think I got my big one out of the way, at least for a while. And the other one was to remind me not to be a dumbass. So we should be able to, get things calmed down here, and we'll stay away from that stuff for a while. It's too expensive.
Yeah. So a couple more questions, buddy. There could be a couple fun questions there. What is your favorite food you like to eat?
My favorite food?
Yep.
To be real honest, my favorite food's pizza. Any kind of pizza, doesn't matter.
All right. What's your favorite beverage?
Oh, Crown and Coke, all the time.
Now, how about non-alcoholic?
Non-alcohol? Actually, I just like iced tea. I drink it by the gallon. I always have something in the fridge.
Yes, I like iced tea, but I like sweet tea.
Oh, no sweet for me, and I like it really dark. I like it really strong, but nothing. I don't want no lemon. I don't want anything in it. Just plain old tea.
Cool. So what's your favorite music?
I listen to a little bit of everything. I'll listen to Hank the Third a bunch, and then I'll get on a Metallica kick, and I kind of float back and forth on a lot of different stuff. To be honest, Spotify is my best friend because I get all the different genres, and I'll just let it ride and hear all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Well, Neal, I want to thank you for doing the interview, man.
Hey, I really I appreciate you having me on, and had a lot of fun doing it.
I'm glad you had fun. We'll do another one in the future, man.
Awesome. I hope to have some other better stories for you.
So do you have any final words or thank yous, any kind of stuff like that you want to do before we close?
I just basically just kind of thanking everybody that has come to these things. The fans have been awesome. Really had a lot of fun with them, and I want to thank my crew guys that are listening to this. I know they put in a lot of hard work. Obviously, the family, there's a lot of support there to put up with me being gone a lot. And, that's pretty much it. Family, friends, and fans, I'm good with it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Neal, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You too, sir. You have a good holiday, all right?
And the best of luck with 2020 with that fuel altered.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, you have a great night, Neal.
Yep, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.